everyone, welcome to my executive summary PowerPoint presentation on rubrics. I hope you enjoy. The research question that I have been diving into over the last couple of weeks is what are recommended practices to create valid, reliable, and usable rubrics at a kindergarten through 6th grade level. When we started thinking about what our research question would be for measurement and assessment a couple weeks ago when we started this course, rubrics was something that was at the forefront of my mind right from the get-go, and it is a very relevant and important topic to me right now because it hits so close to home. There is a current school-wide initiative at my school right now on rubrics and making sure that we are writing and making rubrics that are valid and reliable across our grade levels and subject areas from kindergarten actually all the way through 12th grade. And so this is a little bit of a newer initiative that has been brought about because we are in the process of getting accredited, and I am on the accreditation subcommittee that deals with assessment and measurement actually. So it has been very interesting to be learning more about how to assess our students in a reliable and valid way through being on that subcommittee and also through our time in this class on measurement and assessment. And so because of the current push in rubrics at my school, this is something that seemed like a very natural fit for me. And I was asked to develop a couple of rubrics to use more generally in our 3rd through 5th grade classrooms this fall because I had a student teacher with me, so I had a little bit more time during the day, and I was asked to do a rubric for our inquiry-based science curriculum and then also one to be used with seat work during literature time, and enjoyed that process, but it was a very lengthy one and it was intense and it was a lot of revising and re-revising with my principal, and we're happy with what we came up with, but there still needs to be quite a bit of work done on those rubrics, and so it just seemed like a very natural fit for me to study these this form of assessment on a deeper level. And then recently, it was so cool to watch how God works. Recently I was asked to lead a 1-hour staff development training session in January on how to write valid and reliable rubrics for our elementary and our secondary staff, and it was just kind of a little encouragement, I think, from the Lord, and also a way for me to take what I am learning in graduate school and apply it in such tangible ways into my teaching setting. So I'm really excited to be diving into rubrics even more, and it's so helpful that right now it is so relevant to me. In addition to the relevance of rubrics in my school setting currently, rubrics have also been something that have always fascinated me and have always intrigued me. Since my undergraduate work in education, it's always been something that I have been very interested in, and I think a lot of that stems from the fact that in my undergraduate work and even in high school and middle school, I used to love when teachers would give me a rubric for an assignment or a project or an in-class activity because I knew then exactly what my teachers were expecting of me and what was top-notch quality work and what I was striving for. And it also allowed me to usually go above and beyond the expectations that they gave me. And so I love rubrics, and so that's something that makes me want to study them even more because I see what a valuable tool they are in helping us to teach our students better, and also to be able to evaluate our student work more effectively as well. It provides accountability for us as teachers. It allows us to be able to better assess things like performance assessment or a large project or an inquiry-based science exploration, or things that would normally not be as easy to provide feedback for. And so I'm excited about that as well. And like Dr. Rasmussen mentioned a couple of weeks ago when we were looking at rubrics here in our class, rubrics should generate light and not heat. And so I want to make sure that I am equipped moving forward to be producing assessments and rubrics that are helping my students to see growth areas and strength areas in a new light and not produce anxiety in them. I have been loving diving into all of the research that is out there and available on how to write valid and reliable and usable rubrics in our classrooms, and I'm excited to share a little bit of the research that I found with you today. I'm going to start by sharing a few of the purposes of instructional rubrics and why it's important for us to be incorporating them and considering using them in our classroom. First and foremost, rubrics showcase student growth and learning, which is the primary goal of all assessment. But I think rubrics are special in that students are really able to see growth areas and also strength areas through rubrics as well. Rubrics make assessing student work quicker and more efficient for us as teachers once the rubric has been written. So we do need to obviously put in the time to create a rubric that is well written and measures our objectives. But once it is written and we've revised a little bit and we feel like it is good to go, once that's done, assessing our students will indeed be quicker and more efficient. Rubrics provide accountability for us as teachers so that when we're doing larger projects or doing a science exploration during the day, we have some accountability to be able to assess our students in good ways. Rubrics support student learning. Rubrics provide timely and specific feedback, like I mentioned above. Students are able to see all of their strengths and their strengths shining, and then are also able to chat with their teacher about some growth areas and things that they can continue working on. And lastly, rubrics help students to develop sophisticated thinking skills, and I think that's one of the purposes that as I was doing research, I was getting so excited about, that using a rubric can help our students to be thinking deeper and to become good problem solvers. A few other purposes that I just wanted to include as well. Rubrics help to sharpen teacher thinking as we are looking at our objectives and making sure that our assessments flow from those instructional objectives like we learned about with backward design in our previous class. I think that as we're thinking about our objectives and our learning outcomes, it helps us to think then, how are we assessing and how are we meeting these objectives? So I think that using rubrics is going to make us better teachers. And rubrics also allow students to be able to self-assess. So sharing a rubric with a student at the beginning of an activity or at the beginning of a project or a paper or whatever it may be, it allows them to be able to self-assess through the project or through the writing piece to figure out things that they need to change or things that they might be able to do better, and that's a life skill. So a couple other purposes here for you. A couple other things to share with you from the research that I've been doing. Instructional rubrics help to make our expectations as teachers more clear for our students so they know exactly what they need to do in each of the different criteria and the categories that they're being assessed on in order to receive an A or in order to receive the highest amount of points possible. That happens when our rubrics are well written and when they are easy for students to use and be able to explain. So I think it's absolutely essential for our rubrics to be written in language that's appropriate to the age group that we're dealing with. It's also something I've been seeing in my research. Well-written rubrics also support good higher level thinking in our students and allow them to be able to self-assess and then to be able to peer assess as well if we put them with a partner and ask them to assess their partner's work. It's a great, simple way for them to be able to do that as well. Rubrics also encourage our students to go above and beyond the expectations that we set forth in the rubrics, and I have personal experience of watching my students go above and beyond what I've asked them to do because of explaining and going through a rubric ahead of time, which is so exciting to see. It's very interesting that so much of the research advocates for students being involved in the design of the instructional rubric itself. I have no background in this whatsoever. but I'm very excited to be thinking about how that would look in a third grade classroom or how that would look in an 11th grade classroom. And this helps students to be able to really think about, well, what is going to make this work amazing or more poor? And it's a powerful learning opportunity for them to be able to do that. Lastly, the criteria that we use in our rubrics need to be measurable. And that's something that I had to keep revising some of my rubrics with this past fall, because the criteria I was putting in was not necessarily something that was measurable. And so we need to make sure that our rubrics, the criteria is measurable, and also that the rubrics are written in language that is appropriate to the learner, whether that's a first grader or a 10th grader. It needs to be something that the students can understand. As I've been doing my research, there has been a lot of consistency in what makes a rubric successful and valid and reliable, and that is a rubric that contains the following. So the criteria categories are observable and measurable. The levels of success and the quality indicators are made clear. The language of the rubric is age appropriate. The rubric is error-free and has a nice visual appeal. And then something that is exciting and fun to me is that research has been suggesting that there is a student self-reflection element in the rubric, either at the bottom or off to the side, an opportunity for the student to do some self-reflection, and then an opportunity for teacher comments as well. So in closing, I just wanted to share the couple of things that I am most excited to find out more about in regards to rubrics, and the things that fascinate me and intrigue me about rubrics. First and foremost, I cannot wait to find out more about what it looks like to have students involved in the process of actually writing and crafting the rubric itself. I think that so much of the research that I found is in support of this, and I can't wait to figure out what that looks like and how to do that, especially at an elementary level. I think there's great reason to have students involved, and I think it's a great learning opportunity for them, and so I'm excited to find out more about that. Also, rubrics should be student-centered. They should not be written for the teacher or the parent, and I think at my school, the rubrics that were written before I arrived for our 6th trait writing curriculum, I think the biggest issue with them is that they basically were written for the teacher and the parent, and to be able to showcase growth to the parents at conferences and things like that. And that's not a bad thing, but the students cannot understand them. They're written in language that is not age appropriate. And in order for rubrics to be used by our students and to have positive results, they absolutely need to be student-centered. So I'm looking forward to figuring out more about that. And then lastly, I love that rubrics support higher level, sophisticated thinking in our students. I love that it's going to help them to become better problem solvers and innovators and creative thinkers. And so I think that that is a life skill, and I'm excited that rubrics helps to support that. Thank you for tuning into my little summary on rubrics, and I'm excited to be hearing about what the rest of you are researching. God bless.